Home heating is not optional, and in Alberta, that means we rely on natural gas not just to keep us warm, but to keep us safe. Winter is coming again, and that means that Alberta families will again feel the sting of the federal carbon tax as they heat their homes with natural gas. Here in Alberta, we don't tend to think that more taxes are the solution for anything, let alone a tax on all the things our citizens need to live and thrive in this cold climate. Given the cost of living challenges many households are facing, piling more financial burden onto Canadians is simply cruel and punitive. Until recently, the punishment from Ottawa was shared equally across the country. At the very least, that equal footing gave Canadians a unified front to push back on the federal government, a sense maybe that we were all in it together. But a year ago, almost to the day, Ottawa announced it was exempting heating oil from the federal carbon tax for 3 years. Now that's great for the people of Atlantic Canada and Quebec, who have a higher proportion of their citizens who use heating oil. But let's be clear, most Albertans don't resent them for it either. Unfortunately, this exemption applies to practically no one outside of Eastern Canada. Added to that, the carbon tax on natural gas is more than triple the cost of natural gas itself. The carbon tax rate is about 4 cents a gigajoule, and gas is selling for $1.25 a gigajoule. Now, we can debate why Ottawa made this decision. We may even have a few theories, but whatever their reasons, the outcome is blatantly unfair for people in Alberta and other parts of Canada who use natural gas and other fuels to stay warm in the winter. From where we're sitting, it looks an awful lot like one more attempt to divide our country, to reward one region and punish another. And we're not going to sit back and let this unfair carve-out disadvantage Albertans for another winter. And so I'm pleased to announce that this morning, Alberta filed an application for a judicial review of the exemption in the federal court. We're asking the court to declare the exemption both unconstitutional and unlawful. We hope that this will force Ottawa to recognize the burden the carbon tax places on Canadians and eliminate the tax altogether. Less than 1% of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba use home heating oil. It's 1% in British Columbia. It's 2% in Ontario, 4% in Quebec, 7% in New Brunswick, 18% in Newfoundland and Labrador, 32% in Nova Scotia, 40% in Prince Edward Island. I think it's pretty clear that there are certain regions in the country that are disproportionately benefiting from this. The entire argument that the federal government made about why they needed to impose a federal retail carbon tax was to create fairness across the country. This clearly does not create fairness, and it in fact exempts one of the highest emitting fuels. So they've undermined their entire argument. And if their argument is that it's an affordability issue, well, it's an affordability issue for us too. So we think that they've opened themselves up to a challenge on it.
But we have an abundance of natural gas in this province. It is clean energy. It is available widely all across this province, and indeed I think it's far better to use more conscience than home heating oil would be. And you would think that the federal government would reward that type of use by providing this exemption to Albertans and to Western Canada. But unfortunately, that's not the case here.